Most people don't remember the exact moment they first thought, I should really start saving money. It usually sneaks up on you. Maybe a small emergency hits. Maybe you check your balance a little too closely at the end of the month. Or maybe you just realize that everyone keeps saying saving is important, and you're not really sure why it feels so hard. I've spent a lot of time paying attention to how people behave around money, including myself, and one pattern shows up again and again. The very first milestone, saving that first $1,000, feels oddly heavier than what comes after it. Not because the math is harder, but because everything around it is. What's interesting is that on paper, saving $1,000 shouldn't feel impossible. For many people, it's less than 1 month's salary. And yet emotionally, mentally, it can feel like climbing a wall with no handholds. That's usually where frustration creeps in. People start thinking something must be wrong with them, or that they're just bad with money. What's actually happening is more subtle. At the beginning, money doesn't feel like something you control. It feels like something that arrives and disappears. Rent, food, transport, small random expenses, they all show up first. Saving feels like what's supposed to happen after life is done taking its share. And for a lot of people, there's barely anything left at that point. This is where the first 1,000 becomes psychologically heavy. You're not just saving money. You're trying to change your role in the system. You're moving from reacting to expenses to deciding where money goes. That shift alone takes energy. There's also the issue of visibility. When you have very little saved, progress feels invisible. You save $50 here, $100 there, and life wipes it out with one unexpected bill. That usually leads to the thought, what's the point? And honestly, that reaction makes sense. Humans are wired to stay motivated by visible progress, not by effort alone. This is where it gets interesting. Once someone finally crosses that first $1,000 mark, the emotional relationship with money starts to change. Not dramatically, but noticeably. Money stops feeling entirely fragile. It starts to feel like a buffer instead of a constant threat. At that point, saving the next 10,000 isn't easier because people suddenly earn more. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. It's easier because the system is already in motion. The habit exists. The identity shifts slightly from someone who tries to save to someone who has savings. That usually leads to different decisions without much force. People hesitate a bit longer before impulse spending. They plan a little further ahead. Not because they're following strict rules, but because their brain has proof that saving actually works. Another overlooked factor is confidence. Early on, every saving decision feels risky. You worry about needing the money later. You worry about missing out now. Over time, once savings exist, those fears soften. You start trusting yourself to handle future problems because you already have before. Most people don't think about it this way, but the first $1,000 is less about money and more about momentum. It's about breaking the cycle where every dollar already has a job assigned by necessity. Once that cycle loosens, even slightly, progress compounds quietly. There's also a social layer to this. When you're starting from zero, financial advice can feel disconnected from reality. Concepts like investing or long-term planning feel premature. After that first milestone, those same ideas start to feel relevant instead of overwhelming. Over time, this creates a feedback loop. Small wins build confidence. Confidence improves decisions. Better decisions make saving feel less painful. And eventually, the numbers grow almost as a side effect. None of this means saving is ever effortless. It just means the hardest part isn't the amount. It's the beginning. The part where nothing feels stable yet, and every step forward feels fragile. Once you notice this pattern, it changes how you judge your own progress. The struggle doesn't mean you're failing. It usually means you're still in the hardest phase of the process. And maybe that's the quiet takeaway here. The first $1,000 isn't hard because you're doing something wrong. It's hard because it asks you to change how you relate to money before it gives you anything back. Once that relationship shifts, the rest starts to feel less like pushing and more like moving.